Hey guys, and welcome back. In today's video I am going to be remaking a wig, and this is how it turned out, so just keep on watching and we'll get into it. So the first thing I did was put the wig cap on my head and marked where I wanted my lace front to lay on the wig cap. So the white marks that you see on the black cap are the places I'm going to be sitting my frontal. So now you'll see me put the frontal on and just kind of line up the white spots that's on the frontal and that are on the cap. And then I'll put some T-pins in that to secure it in place so I can sew it onto the cap. Alright, so once you start placing those T-pins, you're just going to make sure you pull the frontal to make sure it's really tight on the cap, so when you start sewing there's no bumps in it or any inconsistencies. It just lays really flat on the cap. And now I just went ahead and pinned it, and I did go ahead and pre-thread all of my needles just to make the process a little faster. And now I'm just going to go in and create that first knot to secure the frontal onto the cap. So I just tie one knot first, and then I'll go back through in that same area and tie another knot to make sure that it doesn't come off and you don't have any issues with thread coming undone. So you'll see me do that process, and then we'll start sewing the frontal all the way down across the front. Okay, so now I'm just going to show you guys how I create the knot in the beginning of the frontal to make sure that it's really secure. So I'll just take the needle and I will take it through the middle of the thread, as you can see here. And I'll do that multiple times just to create a knot in the thread to where it's really secure. And then I'll pull it to make sure I don't create any knots when it's going back down, so now it pulls tight up against the frontal into the cap. So I just did that, and now we'll just continue the process going across the front of the frontal, and then I'll check back in with you guys in a second. Okay, so as I am sewing up the front of the frontal, I am doing it pretty close together. Considering I don't want to make this wig again, I just wanted to make sure that I was very thorough in the process of making it this time so that I don't have any hiccups in the process. So I'm putting them close together. You don't have to, just depending on how you like to make your wigs. I just know that with it being that close together, I can make sure that on this wig for me, everything sits extremely flat because I don't want any bulkiness in it. So I'll just continue this process all the way up, and then we'll get started on the tracks. Alright, so this is me halfway done with the frontal, and this is how it looks so far. So I'll show you guys how I do a couple more stitches, and then we'll start on the back. But I just go ahead and like pull my thread like this. I've noticed that helps it from tangling, considering you make your thread so long. So if I pull it and then pull the string and then pull it through like that, I don't get any like knots in the thread as I go. So I'm just going to take it through as I pull on the thread, and then I want my needle to go in this big circle. So I take the thread like that, and this is like the circle of it, and I want my needle to go in the middle of that circle. So I just take it, put it in between in the middle of the circle, and then I'll pull my thread, making sure I'm pulling all of it so I don't get any knots. Alright, so now that I'm to the end of the frontal, I am just gonna continue the process of taking it through, and then at the end I'm gonna show you guys how I tie it in a knot so that it stays and doesn't come out. So again, you just take it and you have the circle like this, and you just pull it through the circle to try to create like a knot within the within the thread, excuse me. And you just continue that process until you get to the end. And then when you get to the end, you'll just kind of go over that same spot multiple times, and then just to make sure that it doesn't come out. So I'll go, that's the end of it, so I'll just keep going, try to go within that same spot, and then I'll tie it off. And when I tie it off, I'll just take it in the middle of the little circle, and then I'll just keep taking it back through there however many times you desire, and then pull it tight, and that'll create a knot in it. And then once I cut the string, I'll tie a couple more knots in it to make sure that it's really secure and it doesn't come out. So like I said, you take it through the circle of the thread, and then you just rotate around the thread or a couple more times, and then you pull it. And then you take your scissors, depending on how long your nails are, you'll take it to where it's long enough for you to tie in a knot. And then you'll just tie it in a knot a couple times. And then you cut off the excess. And then this is what the frontal is looking like. I'll go ahead and take off. Actually, I'm going to leave the little pins in until I get closer to the front with doing the tracks. But this is how the frontal looks. It's very secure on there, and I did my thread really close together as far as pulling it through, so I don't plan on making this wig again. Hopefully this time it's right. And then after you do that, then you just move on to your tracks. Alright guys, so for the track part, so this is a previous wig that I'm remaking, so I'm just taking the tracks off of the wig that I made too big and reusing them on this wig. So the first thing I'm going to do is the same method that I used on the frontal, and I'm not going to put any tracks on the elastic down here. I'm going to start right where the stitching starts on the bottom of the cap. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it as close as possible to the frontal, and then once I get it in, I am going to create another knot like I did previously. So I'm just going to pull it through, and if it makes it easier for you, you can go ahead and take a pin and just kind of put it in the track weft so that it doesn't keep falling out or falling down off of the wig head. So I'm just going to take it and create that knot again at the beginning. And when I create the first knot, I go through the weft. But as I continue to sew around the cap, I won't go through the weft because it's really hard to get it through, and it'll just be very time consuming. So only on that on the first one will I go through the actual weft, and then take it through the middle of the thread. And when you do that, you just take it around a couple times. And if you make a mistake, you just gotta figure out how to get back through there. It's like a maze. Okay, so you go through 1, 2, and 3, and then you pull it, and that'll create a knot for you. Just kind of pull it tight, and it's not gonna go anywhere. And so now I'm just going to go underneath the weft. All right, so once I tie that first knot, I'm going to just continue the process and go around underneath, and then pull my needle through and go through the thread. And I'll just go all the way around to the other side, and then you just continue that process until you make it to the top. Pull it through the middle of the string or the thread, and you just keep going. And as you go, you just want to make sure you pull the hair tight so that when you're done making your wig, everything's flat and neat, and you don't have any like bulkiness in your wig, so it just lays flat on your head. So you just keep going, and if you need some guidance to help you stay where you need to stay and keep it pulled, you can use one of your little pins. It looks like a little T-pin, and you can use that to pull. So I'm just going to stick that more in the middle than towards the end, and then you just keep going until you make it to the end. And guys, if you make your thread long enough, you should be able to get a couple rows done in the process. And like I said, if you pull on the string, it will stop any tangling from happening in your thread. Because with it being so long, sometimes it'll get snagged, and then it'll create a knot in it. And sometimes those knots are hard to get out, and you'll have to either start over or figure out a way to get that knot out, and sometimes that can be time consuming. So you just want to make sure that you just pull on the thread to make sure that you prevent any knots from happening in your thread. Because when I did my frontal, I made the thread long enough to where I didn't have to stop and tie a knot and then redo more thread. So that makes it a lot easier if you can guesstimate the right amount of thread you need on each needle. It'll help you out a ton when you're making a wig. So you just continue this process, and then yeah. So I made this wig a while ago, and it was too big, and so I'm like, why is this wig so big? So I went ahead and looked at the bottom of my wig head, and I noticed that when I bought my wig head, I bought a 23-inch wig head, and my head is not 23 inches big. So I went and bought another wig head that's 22 inches. And so we shall see at the end if it is a better fit for me. If not, I can always add a strap, which will make it fit a little tighter. And I can also put some combs in the back, which will help it. It'll help it secure to my head a lot better. But I know that this one's going to fit a lot better just because the wig head is a lot smaller. And I can already tell by how many tracks I'm going to need between here and to the frontal that it's going to be a lot smaller too. So, yeah, keep that in mind when you're making a wig for yourself. Make sure you have the right wig head for that process. So yeah, just gonna continue to keep going around. And like I said, you just go under, and then you take your needle through the thread. Alright, so once you get to the end of that actual track, then again you'll take it and you'll pull it through a couple times. And then when you get to the end, I'm going to do this one more time and then I'm going to tie it. Alright, so once you get to the end, you're going to go through the actual weft of that track. And you're going to pull it through. And once you pull it through, take it through once and then try and go through that same hole again. And then once you do that, you take it, and when it's this small, you just wrap it around the needle. So just wrap it. And that'll create that knot that you need, and then you'll pull it through. And then it'll be nice and tight. And then you can just take your scissors and cut that and tie a couple more knots just to make sure that it's really secure. So I'll cut it. And I'll tie a couple more knots in the thread. And it'll be secure. And you just cut the excess off. And then that's how the first track looks. And then you just continue that process all the way up. Alright guys, so this is me pretty much more than halfway done, and you can see that I started laying the tracks just going straight across. So this is how it's looking so far. So just keep watching and you will see the finished look. Alright guys, so I am in the process of putting in my last track on the top. And as you can see, I started laying them just straight across instead of like on a slant, or not even a slant, more like a smiley face. And that's just so they can lay really flat and the wig can just be flat and you don't have any bulkiness in it. So yeah, so let's just go ahead and lay this last track and then I'll show you guys how the wig looks on. And like I said before, I'm just using the same hair that I used to make the wig before. So on this last row, I might have to use a couple pieces just to like fill in this little gap right here. So you just follow that same process as I showed you guys in the beginning of the video. But you want to make sure this one is laying really close to your frontal. So you, just so everything looks very nice and neat and you don't have any spaces or anything like that, and everything just lays flat. So this one, as you can see, when it's on there, it's just laying flat against the frontal. And yeah, so I'll just keep doing that. And like I said before, you just want to make sure that you're taking it through the circle. Just try to create some protection around the weft of the track so that nothing comes loose. Because when you're making a wig like this, obviously it's more of a permanent solution. So you don't want anything to come loose to where you have to try to go in and fix it. So just keep that in mind. Alright guys, so this is how it looks after doing that final track in the top. As you can see, everything is kind of nice and neat, and it's laying really flat in the back. So that's what you want to see when you're making your wig, is just really flatness. Alright, so now just take a spray bottle like so, and just put some water in, and I use my Nairobi Wrap and Shine foam, and I just spray it a little bit, spray the actual wig with some water, and then I'll go in and just kind of lay everything down. And depending on where you wear your part is where you'll place your part. I like to wear middle parts, so I'll put a middle part in mine, which is kind of already there from the last wig. And then the wrapping foam just really helps everything lay a little more seamless. And so I just use that to create a really nice part. So you just kind of comb everything down, and anywhere you see your tracks kind of still showing, you just have to spray some water in there so that it can help it lay flatter. Kind of helps the hair lay where you want it to lay at, so you just have to work with it and find what works for you and just go from there. And so now you don't keep the black cap underneath, obviously. So you just go in and you cut that off from underneath there. Alright guys, so this is the black cap that's underneath the frontal. Unfortunately, when I recorded it before, I recorded it out of frame. But you'll cut the black cap against the back of the frontal where you sewed it at, where that white line is. You just cut that all off. And so I'll probably put a band in it just to help it secure a little better to my head. But this is what your wig should look like. I'm gonna play with it some more, and then I'll show you guys the final look. Alright guys, so this is the finished look of my wig that I made. I did go ahead and add a couple waves into it. I did add a comb in the back, and I also added a band. Like I said before, this is a wig that I had to remake because originally it was too big when I made it before, so I just remade it. I did get the hair from Maven. I'll leave in the description as to the length and the texture of the hair. Also, let me show you guys the back of it. This is how the back looks. Everything's laying really flat, just from the way that I laid my tracks. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please make sure you subscribe, hit that bell notification so you know when I upload. And I will see you guys in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.